Good morning, class. So I'm pretty sure most of you heard the term never judge a book by its cover before. Now, do you guys know what this term means? It means that you shouldn't judge a book based on its outward appearance alone. Now, what if we take that term and we use it on humans, and it becomes, don't judge a human based on his physical appearance? Now, the word judging, however, is too harsh, and it's not suitable for this situation. That is why the word judge is changed to a more suitable phrase, which is a word we all know, which is a first impression. Now, we all know what first impressions are, but the question to be asked is, should we trust our first impressions? The reason why I chose to speak about this topic is because we have first impressions about people every day, and they have first impressions about us every day too. We meet a certain someone, and that certain someone meets us, and after that happens, we most probably will evaluate that person in their own way. Now, I have gathered data from a variety of sources, journal articles and magazines that show how inaccurate a first impression can actually be. So today I will convince you on how you should never trust your first impressions. I will do so by first explaining what a first impression is, the factors that affect a first impression, and I will end by explaining how inaccurate a first impression can actually get. So let's begin by understanding more about first impressions. So a first impression, as defined by yourdictionary.com, is what a person thinks of you after they first meet you, or their initial evaluation of you, or vice versa, you evaluate them. So first impression can be done after a small glimpse at someone. For example, let's take a look at this gentleman. What do you guys think he does for a living? It is very obvious. Based on his clothing, you can assume that he does business for a living. Sometimes it is obvious to make an assumption. A first impression can also be done after a small conversation you had with someone. First impression can also be done from a distance when looking at someone's body language, or even just by hearing what a person has to say without knowing what he or she looks like. So giving off a good first impression is always a good start. It may be the reason you got you earn a job, and may be the reason you lose one. Moreover, according to Brian Tracy on an article titled "The Importance of First Impressions," the way you are seen by someone will greatly determine the influence you have on him or her. For example, if you're the type of person that asks a lot of questions in class and participates regularly, that actually affects your classmates' thinking of you. They will think that you actually know what is going on in the course, and therefore they will be inclined to ask you questions instead of asking someone else in class questions. So even if they ask you questions, they will most probably take your advice into consideration. If they ask someone else and they give them advice, they won't take the advice into consideration because they thought of you as if you're actually a clever person just because you participate in class. So even if you really don't know much in class and you just want participation grades, this actually affects people's thinkings of you and actually affects your influence over them. So now that you know what a first impression is and why they are important, let me explain some of the factors that may affect a first impression. So if you thought that personality is the major determinant of a first impression, then you are absolutely wrong. The major determinant of a first impression is actually physical attractiveness. So according to a 2006 journal article titled "Very First Impressions," it is stated that first impressions of people's personalities is often formed using the visual appearances of their faces. So yes, we do judge people based on personalities, based on appearances. So going back to the phrase, don't judge a book by its cover, us humans unfortunately do exactly that. According to another article by the University of British Columbia in 2011, individuals who look better and tend to be more attractive often give out better first impressions than other people. So if you look better during the first time you meet someone, then lucky you, you will most probably give out a better first impression. Another thing that affects first impression is mood. According to Psychology magazine in 2012, people judge each other depending on the mood or current situation that they are in. If you are in a bad mood, you tend to judge people negatively. Also in the same article, it is stated that we judge each other based on our own lifestyle and the way we choose to live our lives. If someone is doing something against your lifestyle and against the way you live your life, you will tend to judge them negatively even if you don't know them. Another factor that affects first impression is clothing. As we saw with the gentleman here, I only said that he's a businessman based on what he's wearing. But if we take a look at another example, for example, this guy, you can't really have an accurate first impression about him. You can't know what he does for a living. You can't know many things. So clothing affects a first impression highly. And of course, as we all know, religion also plays an important role in first impression. For example, Muslims, if you put them in the Middle East, there's going to be no problem. Most of the residents here are Muslims anyways. But take a Muslim and put him in the United States. They're actually label others as terrorists based on their religion. So religion plays an important role too. So now that you know what a first impression is and the factors that affect a first impression, let's move on and talk about why you should never trust a first impression. So first impressions are inaccurate in most of the cases, and let me tell you why. According to a journal article uploaded on the Sage publications, titled "People Know When Their First Impressions Are Accurate," there's a study that shows how researchers joined two different groups of more than 100 people in a getting acquainted session, or a session where people get to know each other. So the researchers gave the individuals exactly 3 minutes to get to know each other. And after the 3 minutes were over, they were asked to rate each other's personalities and rate how accurate they thought their own rating was. So according to the study, it concluded that people who rated themselves highly accurate of their impression were actually less accurate than the people who rated themselves unsure of their impression. So this shows that even if you are very sure of your impression and of a random individual, you may still be inaccurate. Moreover, the accuracy of first impression depends on the type of judgment made, the amount of time it took to make the judgment, and the temporary location the judgment was made. So if you go back to the study made about the 100 individuals, if you take the same people and you give them more time to get to know each other and you put them in a different place, then it is known that the impressions made would be significantly different. Moreover, according to Watchtower Online Library, appearances can be deceptive. We tend to come up with opinions on people based on previous experiences with other people. We are also certain to generalize and judge a person based on stereotypes. We may also judge a person negatively because of his or her different nationality, ethnicity, social standing, or religion. So, since there are so many things that may affect your first impression could be very inaccurate. In conclusion, first impressions are important, but they could be extremely misleading. By having a negative first impression about someone, you may harm the person indirectly by spreading your negativity about him. Or, for example, if you're sitting with friends, and the person who you had a negative impression about passing by, you will most probably gossip about your impression, and therefore you will spread your negativity indirectly about that person. So before I end this speech, I want to show you a video that sends a very powerful message about judging. And what they did is that they put 6 people in a dark room, they can't see each other, and they are asked to converse with each other and rate each other's personalities or how they think each other looks like. So let's see what happens in the video. This is an advertisement by Coca-Cola. Some of you may have already seen it before. Is the sound working?
No, I switched off the audio in the back of the speaker, sorry.
He's got long hair, but at work he ties it in a ponytail. Probably piercings.
I read a lot of books. I read cognitive psychology, behavioral science. I've spoken at TED Talks. Really? Wow.
You look nerdy. Like you think you're cool, but you're still a nerd.
So as you guys have seen, they can't really see each other. It's a dark room, and there are infrared cameras, so they can see in the dark. That's why you guys can see them. But based on the guy with tattoos, as the video goes by, they eventually open the lights and they get to see each other. And one of the guys says that if I see the guy with the tattoo, I would most probably not speak to him in real life. This may be the same for most of us. So what I'm asking of you guys is, I'm not asking you guys to stop making first impressions. They are actually important. But what I am asking of you guys is to never trust your first impression. So thank you very much.
That was really good.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Any questions?
Where do we get stereotypes from?
Stereotypes?
Yeah. Are they based on like the media, or is it something society establishes?
Society establishes, I guess, yeah.
The times.
Time.
9 minutes.
10?
9.
9?
10 almost.
Questions? No?
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
actually, I do. What got you interested in this topic?
I look like I am?
What?
What?
What's it? You look like you're interested in the topic, but what? Did you choose this topic for you? Like, was it something that you were interested
Yeah, I did. I was going to give the example of how many people make different wrong first impressions about me, but I didn't know how to include it. Like, for example, the teacher, the professor in this room, I have eye bags, right? So she goes like, for the first day, she goes like, get coffee or Red Bull at the next class, right? And then a couple of days later, she goes like, hey, you're the sleepy guy in class, so sit in front. But what she doesn't know is that I have like 10 hours of sleep every night, so I'm not really first impressions stick with people. That's why I'm like, let me do about this.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.